The diplomatic station orbiting Theta 7 was designed for creatures far larger and deadlier than Marcus Chen. The corridors stretched 15 feet high, built to accommodate the Vrakesh, a species that evolved from apex predators on a death world where even the plants fought back. Marcus felt like a child walking through a giant's castle, his regulation boots making soft clicks against the dark metal floor. He carried a data tablet containing trade agreements between Earth and the Vrakesh Coalition. Simple delivery work, they had told him. Nothing complicated. Just hand over the documents, smile politely, and leave. The Vrakesh were new allies, powerful ones, and humanity desperately needed friends in this corner of the galaxy where 3 other species had already tried to claim Earth's resources. The Vrakesh ambassador's quarters loomed ahead, marked by deep claw scratches that served as decoration in their culture. Each scratch told a story of hunts and victories. Marcus swallowed hard and pressed the communication panel. A low rumble answered, which his translator interpreted as permission to enter. The door slid open with a hiss. Ambassador Krathok stood at the far end of the chamber, all 9 feet of her covered in midnight black scales that seemed to absorb light. Her eyes, golden and slit-pupiled, fixed on Marcus with the intensity of a creature that had never known what it meant to be prey. 6 limbs, each ending in talons that could tear through ship hulls, clicked against the floor as she moved. But Marcus barely noticed the ambassador. His attention locked onto the small figure darting between furniture, knocking over what looked like ceremonial weapons. A Vrakesh cub, perhaps 3 feet tall, covered in softer gray scales that would darken with age. It moved with the chaotic energy of youth, pouncing on shadows and making tiny roaring sounds that probably terrified prey animals on the Vrakesh homeworld. "Ambassador Krathok," Marcus said, keeping his voice steady, "I bring the trade agreements from Earth's Commerce Council." The cub froze mid-pounce, its head swiveling toward Marcus with predatory precision. Those golden eyes, so like its parents but filled with curiosity rather than calculated threat assessment, studied the human. The cub had never seen a human before. That much was obvious. "Envoy Chen," the ambassador rumbled, her translator rendering her words in perfect standard. "You honor us with your presence. Please forgive my offspring, Takresh. He is at the age where everything is either prey or challenger." Takresh padded closer to Marcus, lowering his body in what must be a hunting stance. His tiny jaws, already filled with rows of sharp teeth, opened slightly. The cub was trying to look fierce, trying to practice the intimidation techniques that came instinctively to his species. His small tail lashed behind him, and a low growl built in his throat. Marcus had been briefed on Vrakesh customs. Never show fear. Never back down unless you submit completely. Display calm dominance or equal aggression. He stood his ground, though his heart hammered against his ribs. This was just a baby, he reminded himself. A very toothy, clawed baby whose species considered humans soft and weak. Takaresh's growl grew louder. He wanted acknowledgement. Wanted the strange pink creature to recognize him as a threat. The cub snapped his jaws together with a sharp crack that echoed through the chamber. Once, twice, 3 times. Each snap showed off teeth that would one day crush bone with ease. Marcus maintained eye contact, trying to project the kind of calm strength the Vrakesh respected. The cub's aggressive display continued. More jaw snaps, a louder growl. The small creature even tried to puff himself up, scales rising slightly to make himself appear larger. Then it happened. The station's environmental controls had been running high to accommodate the Vrakesh's preferred temperature, but Marcus's section earlier had been cooler. The sudden temperature change, combined with the dust particles floating in the ambassador's quarters from some exotic plant in the corner, triggered that unavoidable biological response. Marcus felt it building. His nose itched, his eyes watered slightly. He tried to hold it back, knowing this wasn't the moment for human bodily functions. But evolution didn't care about diplomatic protocol. The sneeze erupted with unexpected force. Achoo! The sound was sharp, sudden, and completely unlike anything in the Vrakesh vocal range. Marcus's whole body jerked forward with the force of it, his face scrunching up, his arms flying up instinctively. For a moment, he looked utterly ridiculous, all human awkwardness and biological necessity. Takresh's aggressive posturing stopped instantly. The cub's eyes widened. His jaw hung open, not in a threatening display but in pure shock. The small creature stared at Marcus as if the human had just performed magic. Then, something extraordinary happened. The cub's body began to shake. A sound emerged from his throat, not a growl or roar, but something rhythmic and wheezing. The translator struggled with it for a moment before offering laughter, amusement vocalization, intense joy. Takresh collapsed onto his side, all four legs kicking in the air. The laughter sounds continued, interspersed with little snorting noises. The fierce predator cub, moments ago trying to establish dominance, was completely undone by a human sneeze. He rolled back and forth, tail thumping against the floor, scales rippling with what could only be delight. Ambassador Krathok stood frozen, her massive form utterly still. In 300 years of Vrakesh history since they'd reached the stars, she had never seen her son react this way to another species. Takresh scrambled to his feet, only to immediately demand an encore by bouncing toward Marcus with enthusiastic chirps. What did you do to him?" the ambassador asked, her tone caught between amazement and confusion. Marcus wiped his nose with the back of his hand, feeling embarrassed. "I sneezed. It's just a sneeze. Automatic reflex when irritants enter the nasal cavity." Takresh chirped louder, his previous aggression completely forgotten. He mimicked the movement, jerking his head forward and making a sound that was clearly his attempt to copy Marcus's sneeze. It came out as more of a hiss cough, and when it didn't produce the same effect, the cub looked disappointed. The ambassador moved closer, studying Marcus with new interest. "Show him again," she commanded. "I can't just sneeze on demand," Marcus protested. "It's not a voluntary action. I'd need—" He stopped as Takresh picked up a piece of the dusty plant with his snout and brought it toward Marcus, clearly having made the connection between the dust and the reaction. The young predator's eyes shone with hope. Marcus couldn't help it. He laughed. Here was a species that could tear apart battle mechs, and their child wanted to see a human sneeze again like it was the most entertaining thing in the universe. He gently took the plant fragment, careful of the cub's sharp claws, and wafted it near his face. The second sneeze came, if anything, more dramatic than the first. Takresh dissolved into that wheezing laughter again, this time trying to copy Marcus's entire posture and movement. The sight of a Vrakesh cub attempting to scrunch up his scaly face and jerk forward was absurd enough that Marcus found himself genuinely smiling. "Incredible," the ambassador murmured. She circled Marcus slowly, her predatory instincts now directed toward analysis rather than threat. "You make yourself vulnerable, display weakness, and he finds it endearing." "It's just a sneeze," Marcus repeated, though he was beginning to understand this meant something more to the Vrakesh. "No," Krathok said firmly. "My species respects strength. We value dominance. But Takresh has just learned something I never thought to teach him. That strength can exist alongside vulnerability. That one can be non-threatening and still maintain dignity. You did not cower when he challenged you, but you also did not counter-challenge. You simply existed as you are." She took the data tablet from Marcus's hands, her talons careful not to scratch him. "These trade agreements you bring, Earth wants mining rights in the Kelsor belt, correct?" Marcus nodded warily. "That's the proposal, yes. In exchange for agricultural technology and medical research." The council was going to reject it. the ambassador said bluntly. "We saw humans as weak, soft. Your species seemed too fragile for real partnership. We thought you would break at the first sign of conflict with the other powers in this sector." Takresh was now following Marcus around like an eager puppy, still trying to perfect his sneeze mimicry. The cub had completely imprinted on this strange creature that made funny noises and movements. "But this," the ambassador gestured at her son, "has shown me something. Strength isn't just about claws and scales. Your species evolved vulnerabilities like this sneeze reflex, these involuntary responses, and you survived anyway. Thrived even. You reached the stars despite being soft and small and full of strange biological quirks." She pulled up the trade agreement on the tablet, her claws flying over the interface with surprising delicacy. "I am adding a clause. Earth will get the mining rights, plus access to 3 more resource-rich systems. In exchange, you will establish a cultural exchange program. I want Vrakesh youth to spend time with humans, to learn that the galaxy isn't just about who has the sharpest teeth." Marcus felt his breath catch. This was more than they'd hoped for, more than the Commerce Council had dared to ask. "Ambassador, I'm not authorized to—" "You are now," she interrupted. "My word carries weight in the coalition. If I say humans are worthy partners, the others will listen. And if they don't, they'll have to explain why my judgment is flawed." Her golden eyes glinted with amusement. "Few are brave enough to challenge my judgment." Takresh finally managed a sound that resembled Marcus's sneeze, though it was more explosive and came with a small gout of flame from his nostrils. The cub looked so proud of himself that Marcus applauded, which sent the young Vrakesh into fresh paroxysms of joy. "There is wisdom in laughter," the ambassador said quietly, "in finding joy in unexpected places, in responding to strangeness with curiosity rather than aggression. These are lessons my people need to learn. Your sneeze, Envoy Chen, may have just changed the balance of power in this sector." Marcus picked up the revised tablet, scanning through the new terms with growing amazement. His simple delivery mission had turned into the most significant diplomatic breakthrough since humanity joined the galactic community, all because of a sneeze and a predator cub who found it hilarious. "The other species in this region respect only force," Krathok continued. "They will expect humans to be prey, to be conquered or absorbed. But now, you have the Vrakesh Coalition as allies. True allies, not just trading partners. And my son has taught me that prey and predator are limited categories. Humans are neither. You are something else entirely." Takresh bumped against Marcus's leg, the gesture unmistakably affectionate. The human reached down carefully, running his hand over the cub's scales. They were warm and surprisingly smooth. The young Vrakesh made a sound his translator labeled as contentment. "When the council questions my decision," the ambassador said, "I will tell them about today, about how a warrior cub preparing to intimidate an inferior species instead learned to laugh, about how vulnerability and strength can exist in the same moment, about how sometimes the greatest weapon isn't teeth or claws, but the ability to surprise, to adapt, to make others see the world differently." She fixed Marcus with an intense stare. "Your species has that weapon in abundance. You are strange, Envoy Chen. Wonderfully, dangerously strange. Never let the galaxy make you ordinary." Marcus left the ambassador's quarters an hour later. The revised trade agreement secured, and a universe of new possibilities opened. Takresh had followed him to the door, still trying to perfect his sneeze mimicry, still dissolving into that wheezing laughter when Marcus demonstrated it one more time. As the door closed behind him, Marcus heard the ambassador speaking to her son in their native language, untranslated. But he didn't need a translator to understand the tone. It was the voice of a parent teaching their child an important lesson, one that would shape how the young Vrakesh saw the galaxy. Marcus walked back through those giant corridors, no longer feeling small. Somewhere in the station, Alarms announced the arrival of another ship, more diplomats and traders from species he'd never met. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, filled with creatures that could tear humans apart without effort. But humanity had survived ice ages and predators and plagues and themselves. They had reached the stars carrying all their strange vulnerabilities and odd biology. And now, at least one powerful species had learned that those quirks weren't weaknesses to be exploited. Sometimes a sneeze was just a sneeze, but sometimes it was the moment that changed everything. Marcus smiled to himself and headed back to his ship, already composing the report that would make the Commerce Council think he'd lost his mind. Until they saw the new agreement. Until they understood what one human sneeze and one predator cub's laughter had accomplished. In the cold mathematics of galactic politics, humanity had just become a protected species. Not because they were strong enough to defend themselves alone, but because they had made a predator's child collapse laughing. That was the most human achievement of all.